Well, that time of the week, ladies and gentlemen, we go out to the Netherlands of the West Coast in Hollywood, California, and Michael Snyder, who's got some movie reviews for you. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Alex, and greetings all of you out there in GABNet land and beyond. Yeah, you know what? The movies are starting to get pretty interesting as we approach the end of the year when prestige films come out. Let's get to what I believe are a few of them. Back in the 1960s, the Ford Motor Company was having difficulties ramping up their sales and connecting with younger drivers. Their sports car division was also being beaten in high-performance races by Italy's boutique Ferrari company. So Henry Ford II was convinced by a young Lee Iacocca to hire a visionary designer to build a car that would compete with and beat Ferrari's top car. And that's what Ford v. Ferrari, a hot and cool new movie from director James Mangold, is all about. Mangold delivered great work with Copland and Logan, among other movies, and he continues his streak with Ford v. Ferrari. This is a rockin' good film about fighting the corporate machine and then driving it, if you will. Plus, it's an awesome period piece with thrilling racing sequences and some top-drawer performances by Matt Damon as American race car driver turned future-forward designer Carroll Shelby. He was kind of a Grand Prix cowboy. And Christian Bale as rebellious, short-tempered, but highly skilled and intuitive British Formula One racer Ken Miles. From Southern California to Daytona to Le Mans, this was a treat, even if you know the historical outcome. And again, let me say the period detail, the stuff in Southern California in the 60s, it was like catnip to me. In any event, this movie just kept me rolling throughout. And also, again, supporting players, very important here. John Bernthal plays Lee Iacocca. Catriona Balfe of Outlander is Miles' wife, Molly. Tracy Letts is Henry Ford II, who gives a very fascinating and almost sympathetic performance for a corporate bigwig. And Josh Lucas plays Ford exec Leo Beebe, who has it in for Miles in particular, but no love for Iacocca or Shelby either. There's tension, there's dynamics, and there's some really cool racing stuff. I really enjoyed Ford v. Ferrari. Okay, now, for something entirely different, this is what we've got next, a movie called The Good Liar. Now, again, this seems like prestige movie making. It's a mix of mystery thriller and cat and mouse game elevated by its co-stars. Charismatic, decorated veteran actors of stage and screen, Sir Ian McKellen and Dame Helen Mirren. This does, again, sound like something that's trolling for awards. It's really not as good as it seems it should be. The twosome play a pair of seemingly proper British seniors who meet online via a dating service for folks of a certain age. Sounds sweet in an AARP way, but we quickly learn that one of the twosome has a questionable agenda, and as their relationship develops, so does the intrigue. The title says part of it suggesting lies and secrets. There's some crime and punishment here and echoes of the past to muddy the waters. It's hard to believe that this is the first time that McKellen and Mirren have headlined a movie together, and they are almost enough to overcome some questionable plot twists and credibility-stretching moments that would have sunk to lesser talents. Ultimately, I felt my time watching them at work was not wasted. They're both that good, script questions notwithstanding. The Good Liar was directed by Bill Condon of Gods and Monsters fame. That was, by the way, a movie that featured McKellen as Frankenstein director James Whale, and a few other notable releases from this director include Kinsey in the live-action Disney Beauty and the Beast. This is not one of his best, but it's hard to argue against the pleasures of McKellen and Mirren going at it. Speaking of casting pluses, you also get Russell Tovey of Being Human and Jim Carter from Downton Abbey. I wish the end result was comparable to this stellar cast. Let's get back on a good foot here. I was thoroughly engrossed by The Report, a detailed and disturbing look at the struggle faced by Senate investigator Daniel Jones as he tried to shed light on the inhumane and unsuccessful attempts by the CIA to interrogate Middle Eastern terrorists types in the aftermath of 9/11. I mean, certain factions within the U.S. government and intelligence services tried to cover up any transgressions. So this guy Jones went after them. Adam Driver is quite good as Jones. He's attempting to get at the truth of what was happening and up against the might of those who tried to exceed or circumvent accepted international conventions against torture. Jones was working at the pleasure of Dianne Feinstein, a very familiar face, played here in somewhat convincing manner by Annette Bening. This also has John Hamm as one of Jones' mentors, Ted Levine, Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and Captain Stottlemyre of Monk as the CIA's John Brennan, and a group of really impressive actors in small roles, very familiar faces, including Matthew Rhys of The Americans. There are very claustrophobic and borderline dry moments when Jones is doing his research in what seems like a vacuum. But his dedication, the DC infighting, and the flashes of what was happening to the prisoners add thrust to the report, which, by the way, was written and directed in no-frills, no-nonsense fashion by Scott Z. Burns. It's still relevant, it's still topical, and still disturbing in an America that seems all too laissez-faire about political partisanship, duplicity, and human rights violations. All right, we want to do a quick jump back to a couple films that Netflix has released theatrically, but they're both going to be available at home, and they're both really, really good. The legendary filmmaker Martin Scorsese has come up with The Irishman. He's been railing about how Marvel superhero movies aren't cinema, but bloated, overlong action extravaganzas. It's a little amusing to me that this latest from him, a crime drama about Frank Sheeran, an Irish-American truck driver who becomes a mob enforcer, clicks in at an epic 3 hours and 20 minutes, which is about 15 minutes longer than Avengers Endgame. In any event, Frank is a mob enforcer for the Buffalino family and a confidant to powerful, controversial labor leader Jimmy Hoffa. I was never bored or distracted throughout this film, largely due to the director's peerless storytelling and a cast led by Robert De Niro as Frank, Joe Pesci as mafia boss Russell Buffalino, and Al Pacino as Jimmy Hoffa. The film's narrated in flashbacks by the aged Frank. It's constantly involving. And oddly enough, this is only the second time De Niro and Pacino have appeared on the big screen together. The first was, I believe, one scene in Michael Mann's Heat. This, on the other hand, is a banquet of their interplay. It's screen goodness, and watching it at home lets you take breaks, which might be necessary. It's a very, very lengthy movie. Finally, wow. Marriage Story, also a Netflix film in the theaters now and soon to be available at home. And this thing was incredibly, incredibly powerful. Adam Driver, again, and Scarlett Johansson are both note perfect here. It's a brutal, painfully real look at the marriage between Charlie, a New York City stage director, and Nicole, an actress from L.A., two people who love one another. As their relationship is falling apart, they try to grapple with co-parenting their kid. Nicole leaves New York to take a job in L.A. They find themselves trapped in the minefield of an impending divorce. It's maybe my favorite movie from director-screenwriter Noah Baumbach, who did The Squid and the Whale and Margot at the Wedding. Driver does so much of the heavy lifting here, and he's given so much to chew on, and he's more than up to it. As good as he is in The Report and other stuff, he gives his best performance here, and Scarlett is his equal. By the way, if you don't choke up or actually weep a bit by the end of this, you are dead inside. High notes to Marriage Story. What are you watching, pal?
Well, Disney Plus has been out, and I'm watching it, and I found a surprisingly good thing on it. It's an original, and you would not expect it to be this good. Lady and the Tramp.
Oh, the live-action Lady and the Tramp.
Well, I don't know if it's live action. I think the dogs are all CGI, but if they are, it is so transparent that it's wonderful. And it is beautifully done, has a lot of heart, and I think in many ways surpasses the original.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I also, if you've been watching, have you had a chance to watch The Mandalorian, the new Star Wars TV series? Any feelings about that? I haven't seen it yet.
They're releasing it episode by episode. First episode, it was okay. It had all the special effects and the artwork that you expect from Star Wars. I'll have to wait and see whether it turns out to be good so far as engrossing and, good drama.
All right, cool. I'm definitely on board. You can check me out on Twitter at Culture Blaster, certainly on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page, and especially here at GABNet. And back to you, Mr. B.
All right, and that's it for Michael. If you want to see him or hear him, you can hear him on demand on our GABNet.net page, or you can listen to him 24/7 here as GABNet continues.